Good morning, Titans Nation. Welcome into the Morning Glory Show. I hope you are shit showered, shaved. I hope you got your mayo in your cup because it's time to tighten up. And I am your host, as always, Jake Robertson. Follow me on all socials at Glory Days Sports. And today I am joined by my two beautiful co-hosts, as well as always, Jonathan Miller at Esports Balin and B-Will at BWillTFTV. How we doing today, boys?
Good, man. Can't complain. Glad we made it through the tornadoes that came through Middle Tennessee last night, man. I mean, they were scary.
Oof, those are rough. Shout out to everybody out there who might have been impacted also. Man, hope everybody's all right.
Yeah, you got to keep your head on the swivel, boys. But hopefully hearts and prayers out to everybody out there that's dealing with any rebuilding. Hope all your families are safe. But we're going to talk some football today. It's been a busy week for Rand Carnthon and the boys. We got a huge signing that we'll be talking about. We brought in Tyler Boyd, the Cincinnati Bengal, filling in that wide receiver 3 role for Will Levis and Brian Callahan. What are our initial thoughts on the signing?
I mean, my initial thoughts are, man, I'm just glad it wasn't Zay Jones, to be honest, because we brought him in for a visit. I wasn't extremely enthused about Zay Jones, the prospects of him becoming a Titan. He just didn't impress me that much. I mean, he sort of torched us last year, but that was one game. But, you know, Tyler Boyd really gives us even more of a veteran presence in that locker room. But he also allows these young receivers and the receivers that aren't used to Callahan's system, give them some continuity, really make it and be able to simplify things for them when they're trying to learn this offense, man. I'm not going to say I'm excited about the signing, but I'm just glad that we've got a decent receiver room now.
Yeah, I'm pretty hype about it. At first I wasn't, because I was like, man, what does this mean for Traylon Burks as you know, the president of Team Burks Foundation. But honestly,
impeached, doing Ron Slay.
Yeah. The more I think about it, though, it makes a ton of sense, not only to solidify the slot spot, but I don't think that it necessarily takes away from Burks and the opportunities he's going to get, because I don't think that's necessarily the role that Callahan and the coaching staff had for Burks. So, you know, we'll dive into that more later, but I really like the signing. Tyler Boyd is, when you think about that player, you think like, man, he's just held it down for Cincinnati for so many years. He's been Mr. Reliable. He's had the ability to kick outside when there's been an injury, which T. Higgins has had significant and many injuries. So there's been a lot of opportunity for Tyler. But yeah, I think it's a great signing. I think it's good for continuity with this new offense that's being installed. Tyler's going to arguably be the most caught up, I would assume, out of the bunch, and he'll be able to help the rest of the receiver core kind of get up to speed, and the transition should be really smooth for him. But what's really interesting is the contract situation. The contract situation is like, wow, up to $4.5 million was far less money than I assumed Tyler was going to fetch. I think he made like $8.9 million on the last year of his contract with the Bengals last year. So really, really interesting on that side. But I love it. Love it for the Titans.
No, I think this is continuity move, just like you put it. This doesn't raise the ceiling for me by any means, but it does raise the floor. This brings in one of Callahan's guys to help teach these other receivers and even catch up DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley, get them up to speed as well. I mean, this has been Mr. Consistency. I mean, 600 plus yards in most of his seasons. We're not getting 2018, 2019 Tyler Boyd out there when he went 1,000 plus yards in back-to-back seasons. But this gives Will Levis a reliable receiver in the slots. He's not going to be a big playmaker for us, but he's going to get open quick. And he has the ability to make a man miss in the open field. And we saw, I went back and just watched some highlights. I was like, man, he's still kind of got it. He's still kind of got it. He's shifty. And I mean, this receiving core is by no means explosive and young. I mean, you can get half off at Golden Corral at the buffet line if you get what I'm talking about. They got that senior citizen discount. But we're building around Will Levis. We're giving him some options. I mean, Tyler Boyd, this is really that big slot. He really revolutionized the position, in my opinion. He was really that first big slot we saw out there. And he's never been the explosive guy, but he understands the position very well. And if anything, maybe in the future, we can see more of that out of a Traylon Burks, out of a Kyle Phillips if he makes the roster, or Jaquan Jackson. But overall, I'm pretty happy with signing. If this was the initial Calvin Ridley signing, I've been pissed because this is not the guy. But having him as a wide receiver 3, perfectly fine with.
He's a zone beater, right? Like he's a zone
100%.
beater, and Calvin Ridley is your man beater. So it adds a level of versatility to the offense that was I wasn't going to say it's not there, but it was unproven. Just like Brian Callahan said, right? He was like, we need somebody, we need a dedicated slot. We need somebody to step up, whether that's Burks or Phillips or Jaquan Jackson or whoever. And now you have that person. So, and everybody kind of saying like, oh, like, you know, we don't need a wide receiver. We need to go after X, Y, and Z. It's like, yeah, we kind of did, if we're being honest. Like, we haven't had the consistency at the wide receiver position. There's always been injuries. There's always been holes at the depth spot. So now you're looking at Nick Westbrook, Akine, and Treylon Burks as wide receiver 4 and 5. I mean, that is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So I really like the signing because it solidifies a spot in this offense that really has been a revolving door. Like, right. Who's been your slot? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I think it's probably a better signing we're giving it credit for at this point in the offseason, and really looking forward to seeing how that offense, those initial 3 go out there and what that looks like.
I'm just concerned about the lack of explosiveness in this offense, man. I mean, it's the elephant in the room. I mean, we've got Hopkins. We've got, you know, Ridley's explosive to an extent. He can take the top off of defense to an extent. But we're still lacking that yak guy outside of Chig that's going to catch – and outside of Pollard and Spears, obviously. But from the receiver spot that is going to break a tackle, make a guy miss, and get a third down, convert a third down if it's 3rd and 9 and it's 3rd and 5 and we can only throw it short. We really don't have that, and that's why I was really, and this is beating a dead horse. This is why I wanted us to get Malik Washington. He's that guy, you know. But we sort of just conceded and threw in the towel, and we got a vet that, you know, it's $4.5 million for Tyler Boyd, and it doesn't excite me. I'll just say that.
No, we're just talking relative athletic scores. Tyler Boyd almost ran a 4.6 at the combine 10 years ago. DeAndre Hopkins was a 4.6 plus. And the Calvin Ridley, I mean, he wasn't a fast guy either. But we look at Will Levis, and when he was his most successful, it was really 2 years removed from college when he had a Wan'Dale Robinson in the slot there for him. That was the speedster. He's really not ever had that in the NFL to this point. So, right. And Treylon Burks, I mean, he's going to be that vertical threat for you. He's going to go up and get the ball. But, I mean, he's pretty slow, too. I mean, Chigakonkwo might be the fastest player on that receiving core at this point in time, other than a Jaquan Jackson, who is that speedster. But is he going to see the field is the question. So I really have I'm hopeful for this receiving core. I was listening to the Fantasy Footballers this morning on the drive over, and they put it, this receiving core is microwaved French fries is how they put it. Was really good at one point in time. 3 years ago, this is an elite receiving core. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But I don't know if I'm going to go that far. They might be air fried fries. I mean, but overall, it's a good signing. And I think as far as a depth perspective, this might be the deepest this room has ever been for the Titans since they moved to Nashville. And I don't think that's a hot take in any means. But I'm going to be interested to see what transpires. And we're 1 day away from rookie minicamp. So maybe Jaquan Jackson gets out there and he shows out. Maybe.
That's the hope. So. What do y'all say about, you know, if this, for me, this signing amongst others is really what takes away all excuses from Will Levis, in my opinion. I think that's what this season's more about than anything. I wouldn't say it's about competing for a Super Bowl or anything like that. It's about really, truly, and confidently understanding if he's that guy at quarterback. You know, he doesn't have any more excuses.
No.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean, they did a great job of building around him, right? Like, that's what we needed to see. And, you know, I actually said that in one of my videos that I made recently was that the only thing you can hope for is that the team is going to do everything they can to find out if Will Levis is the guy right away. You have to, right? Because you don't have the 5th-year option that a typical franchise quarterback has because he was the top of the 2nd-round pick. And that's the trade-off in value when you take him that late. But I think, you know, it's clear evaluating. The more I look at Will Levis's tape from last season, just him, like I'm not evaluating the offensive line, I'm not evaluating the pass catchers, I'm just looking at Will Levis, how he's, working the pocket, his decision making. He's got a lightning whip release. So the intangibles are already there. You can see that. But just looking at him process, I mean, I know that there's a play that's been going around from the Houston game late in the season where he's literally getting hit and diving sideways and whipping the ball like on a rope to the sideline. Those are things that Ryan Tannehill can't do. Those are things that Marcus Mariota couldn't do. Those are things that we haven't seen. Vince Young never made that throw. So I think the difference in what the Titans fan, what we've seen at the franchise quarterback spot and what we have in Will Levis is that he has some very, very serious thrower of the football ability that we we definitely have not seen to this point. So now you guys are right. Like, we have to see him put it together. He has insane talent. The offensive line is far and away better than it was last year that he was working with. His pass catchers are far and away better. He's got a arguably just as good, if not better, defense working for him. So he should see the ball more. It's just everything is playing in his favor. So he's got to put it together.
No, definitely. The Tennessee Titans media and fandom, we're always going to be higher on our quarterback, of course, other than maybe Marcus Mariota at the twilights of his career. Everybody seemed to be down on him. But when we look at national media, Titans fans are going to be pissed off because they're going to have us at the bottom of the barrel of teams. They're going to have us drafting Carson Beck in next season's mock drafts. And you have to understand, if Will Levis doesn't have it, he doesn't have it. And they're going to be looking back into that well very soon. Ultimately, he is a second-round quarterback. You're not hitching the wagon if he's not that guy. It's something you can cut. I mean, look at Malik Willis. He's one round removed from being Will Levis. I'm not saying he's not, and I loved Will Levis coming out of the draft, and I think he can be that guy. But you have to show promise. You have to put it together. Physical talent is there. In between the years, I think, is there as well. And it's really just cleaning up some of those mistakes and showcasing those highlights a lot more moving forward. And I think he can do that. I think he can do
temperament
that.
With him. That's the big thing with me is his temperament. And it's not saying that it's bad to have that super, super, super aggressive temperament. There's a time and place for it. You can't be like, say you're in a Super Bowl down by 21. You can't have that same temperament week 3 when you're up by 2 touchdowns. You're trying to close a game out. That's the big thing with him quarterback-wise that I see. And that's something that Callahan's going to help with. And getting a guy like Tyler Boyd, he's going to slow your temperament down a little bit too. He ain't going to give you the option to throw it 50 yards down the field. So, we'll see about that.
And he doesn't have to be Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes next season. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the thing. Like, what's funny is that this is what I find funny. Will Levis does not get the same grace that Anthony Richardson has been afforded. Will Levis does not get the same grace that Trevor Lawrence has been afforded. And granted, Trevor's put it together and had some pretty nice seasons. So, not taking anything away from Trevor Lawrence. But what I am saying is that if Anthony Richardson, someone who has a far smaller sample size and a much bigger injury history, is getting more grace, I saw something that said that, is Anthony Richardson a top 5 quarterback? That was a graphic that somebody made a couple days ago. And I'm looking at that like, bro, I like Anthony Richardson as a player, but to call him a top 5 quarterback and say Will Levis is the 32nd quarterback in the league is like, there's a major
played in 4
there.
fucking games.
Yeah.
4
games. I don't
games.
understand. I'm just being completely objective here. I don't understand. So what I'm saying is that, is Will Levis being looked at in a harsher light because he's a Titans quarterback? I think he is. And so he doesn't have to be a top 5 guy next year. He just needs to be good. That's really all he needs to be for people to say, okay, he can build on this. And so, he has to give us, I like what Zach Lyons did in one of his shows. This was probably like 2 months ago or something, but he was giving a basically like projections for what would be considered good enough for Will Levis in terms of like progressing. And, he had, like, from a projection standpoint, he was looking really good if he would have finished the season out. for the sample size of games he played. But what's interesting is like the ceiling for a Titans quarterback is like 4,000 yard season and 35 touchdowns and not throwing double-digit picks. And it's like the ceiling is really low for him to be like, wow, this is the best season since a McNair season, you know? So I think that that's also something that Titans fans, we have to kind of temper our expectations a little bit, because like the national media is shitting on Will Levis so hard that we're almost going, oh my gosh, like if he's not Josh Allen next year, then we have to go quarterback fishing. It's like, whoa, timeout. If he stays healthy and has a good season, then we're in the clear. He's going to be the guy.
Yeah, it's hard to have a good season in NFL, though. I mean, you know, it's just we'll see how this is. He's a second-year quarterback. He'll have more tape on him. You know, if I were to put a percentage of how confident I am that he can be our quarterback, I'd say it's about 70%, 75%. You know, I think Richardson himself has a lot higher chance to be the second best quarterback in this division than he does being the worst quarterback in this division. Let's be honest. I think he can. If he does what he should do, he could be right under Stroud. And Lawrence, I'm not high on Lawrence at all. But it's all, like we said, it's about, with Levis, it's all about his temperament. We can't say it's a supporting cast anymore. Can't say it's his prehistoric offense. It's all in his hands, which is exactly what we want. You know, we draft this guy in the second round. The destiny of this franchise is in his hands, and we can't say that we'd be worried for character issues or anything like that. He doesn't give us any reasons to worry. It's literally just about what he does from 12 to 3 on Sundays. You know, that's about what it is.
I think my two biggest things, and MB in the chat kind of alluded to it, what does it actually define to be that guy? In my opinion, it's pretty simple. You have to stay healthy, which he hasn't done the last 2 seasons in college or in last season in the pros. And you have to be slightly better than Ryan Tannehill. That is all I am asking.
You have to go win your team games. That's what it is. If you're the guy, what it means, and that's why Anthony Richardson is getting some love, because in that small sample size he played, he went and won them game. You know what I'm like? He was him.
That says a lot.
That's what it's got to be, right? So like your quarterback, if Ryan Tannehill, he had his moments in 2019, 2020, we saw some flashes, but that was on the back end of his career. This guy, Will Levis, if he's the guy, he's going to go out there and win his team games. His play is going to go, that's why they're winning. Oh my God, that was a huge play from Will Levis. That's like him throwing a pick and then literally recovering the fumble and being like first down. Those plays, doing that, and obviously you don't want to see, that's a bad example because I wasn't really throwing the ball good, but those are examples of like, okay, if this guy's the reason we're winning games, then he's your guy. It's literally that simple. I don't care about throwing for 5,000 yards or throwing 45 touchdown passes or all of those things. Those are indicators that you have a guy. But what I care about is the play that he made, this throw that he made that was impossible for that DB to catch it, and his guy got it and we won, but he only threw 2 passing touchdowns and 202 yards. Doesn't matter. Stats don't matter. If he made that play and didn't turn over the ball and lose us the game, that's a big plus. That's it.
So out of 17 games in the season, we're probably going to have to see, for me to feel confident that Levis is the guy, I'd have to see like 5, 6 of the Miami games.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, at least.
Well, hopefully we don't make historic comeback wins. 5
I'm just saying, just his performance himself.
No doubt.
You know, we've got to see that. And I can't see 4 Houston games. I can't see. That's what I don't want to see.
Yep.
So it's just as much of what good he does. His highs have to be good, and his lows can't be that bad for me. I mean, the quarterback is not a simple position in the league. So you've got to win your team games, but you can't lose your team games either. That's the whole thing with some of these other quarterbacks is they genuinely lose their team games. You know, so that's something that goes into it too.
More Miami, more Atlanta, less Pittsburgh, less Houston. That's all we got to do. And I mean, he's not going to be perfect by any means.
No.
But he has to show improvement this season, and I think he will down the stretch just because of everything that they're bringing in around him. It's going to take time to gel and get all that put together. So I'm not going to write him off if we're 0-3 to start the season, which obviously we get the season, whatever you want to call it, the schedule
next
next week
on Wednesday, the 15th.
Yeah, so we'll be talking about that next Thursday. But whenever we see that, I mean, we'll come out those season projections and all that stuff. But I'm not going to write him off early if he struggles because they're still going to be building around him. But I think ultimately he can be that guy, and I'm super excited.
The weird thing about him is that he takes care of some of the stuff rookies shouldn't be taken care of, like it before the snap. If you watch Will Levis before the snap and all the calls that he makes, the checks, the calling out the blocking schemes for the offensive line. That's a lot for a rookie to be doing that, to step in and immediately do that, especially if you weren't taking reps with the ones in training camp. So there's so many things he does that makes you wonder, like, wow, this guy can be him. And then there's just some other things that he does, and you're like, what the hell? So we'll see, though.
To me, it's the throws. Like, obviously the processing side of things, he struggled with that a little bit in his rookie season. He missed a read that probably would have been a touchdown at the end of that Pittsburgh game. And so there were moments like that where he struggled, but boy, man, this guy's arm talent is absurd. He literally, like the throw to Nick Westbrook-Akine in the Atlanta game where he literally cross-bodied he made a lot of those throws. He had some deep outs that he threw that were beautiful on time. So this guy, even with pressure in his face and literally pressure knocking him down, is still delivering just incredible balls. So it's not his ability. Like, this guy has the ability to play the position that we have not seen at the quarterback position. This franchise has not seen a talent like him.
Physical.
Now, exactly. And what I'm optimistic about is that the difference is that he doesn't have a defensive head coach developing him, which is what unfortunately some of our previous quarterbacks have had, right? Like not quarterback savvy coaches. It is a completely different ball game. He's got some really, really great coaches that are going to help him advance his game, and they nipped it in the bud fast. They're like, okay, this guy could be the guy. All right, flush all the coaching staff. Like, let's get some folks in here that can develop this kid. So that's what makes me optimistic, and that's why I'm a little bit higher on. I think he's going to hit, because I think he passed the eye test for me his rookie season, and he's just got to take that step now. And I think he's got the right people, and he's clearly got the right personnel around him to get that done.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think he's closer to QB1 than he is QB32. I think he's going to fall somewhere in between that. But I do think he does have everything that you're looking for in a quarterback. It's just putting it all together. But
real quick, who do you think has the better season between him and Richardson?
Oof.
Honestly, I mean, let's be honest.
If you want my unbiased opinion, I was higher on Richardson coming out of the draft than Will Levis. I had him at QB2 and then Will Levis at 3 and then Stroud at 4. Big, huge miss on my part. But I like yeah, that was real bad. It was real bad.
I wanted Stroud so bad for the Titans.
And the Titans did too.
But ultimately, I think Anthony Richardson will have the better season if he stays healthy. I really like the way this year's Colts draft I wasn't high on, but last year's was very good. I love Josh Downs. I like Michael Pittman. I like what they're bringing in. They got Anthony Gould now, so they have another field stretcher. He needs snaps, though. So similarly to Will Levis, I think it's still going to take some time, and he's going to have some huge yips at points and times in the season. But what he offers on a physical aspect is unworldly. Best athlete at the quarterback position outside of maybe Cam Newton ever. So I think he can put it together there. But
I think he might have the best play caller in the division too.
Yeah.
Honestly. If Peterson's not calling plays in Jacksonville, he'll have the best play caller in the division. Steichen, the shit he did when he came to Nashville, the game he called against us, and the game he called against us in Indy was great. They just have problems executing. But I mean, he had Minshew dealing against us.
Yeah.
I think Anthony Richardson on paper, if he stays healthy, should have a better season statistically than Will Levis. But, man, Anthony Richardson just kind of gives me Marcus Mariota vibes, where he's such a talented player, and I feel like injuries are just going to stifle his career. I hope I'm wrong. Even as a division rival, I think Anthony Richardson is an awesome talent. And regardless if he's wearing a horseshoe on his helmet or not, I think he's super fun to watch, and I like him as a player. But man, I'm a little nervous for Colts fans. I think that
Oh yeah.
I don't know. That's the question for me.
Yeah.
I think it's a bigger question. If I'm putting these two things up, if I'm saying what's a bigger question mark, Will Levis, is he going to be the guy for Tennessee? Like, is he going to develop, or is Anthony Richardson going to can he stay healthy and put together a full season?
Mhm.
We haven't seen that, not even at the collegiate level. So I don't know. He supremely talented, hasn't shown us. So that's why I'm questioning. Like, when I see a graphic that says, is Anthony Richardson a top 5 quarterback, and nobody's questioning that this guy is going to be a guy. That's why I'm questioning it, because we haven't seen it. So if you use the same logic against Will Levis, you have to use the same logic over here. We have to see them put it together. So this is going to be an exciting season for the AFC South, because we're essentially going to see 2 quarterbacks emerge after we've already seen it from CJ Stroud. We're going to see two quarterbacks potentially emerge from the same draft, I might add, where 3 division rivals all got their quarterbacks in the same draft. That would be fun for me. I think that would be cool. I'm not wishing on anybody's downfall, even as a fan. I think that would be dope. But yeah, that's just as big of a question mark. So I think I'll split the difference and go with Will Levis has a better season, because it sounds so terrible, but I'm predicting another injury for Richardson.
Who do we think? This is the last thing, and this is something that just popped in my head. Out of the 3, us, Jacksonville, and Indy, who will be the first one to draft another quarterback? I think it would be Jacksonville.
I'm not answering.
I mean, it depends. I mean, he's up for that contract right now, and if he doesn't perform, they could move on. And
I think it'll be Jacksonville, man.
How fucking crazy is it that the AFC South has replaced every head coach and every quarterback since what was he drafted? 2021.
Yeah,
we've changed.
Everything's different.
Everything's different. It's the most exciting, the AFC South.
Trevor Lawrence's grandpa, bro. He's pops. He's the old head.
Yeah, I think Will Levis might be older, actually, if I remember correctly.
They're
the
wild.
same age. They're the same age.
Wild.
At least they're not as old as Penix.
Yeah,
he just turned. His birthday was the other day.
he's almost as old as Kirk Cousins now.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they retire at the same time. Oof.
No, man, this quarterback in this division. I mean, CJ Stroud's got to be 1. For quarterback 2, I was never a Trevor Lawrence guy, never. But I'm going to put him over Will Levis and actually give him QB3.
Yeah,
I'm going to put Anthony Richardson at 2 and Will Levis at 4.
Trevor's done enough to deserve QB2. I think
he's won the AFC South. I'll give him that. And he had a shitty start to his career with what he just had built around him with his coaching staff and the receiving group. And then Doug Peterson comes in and they flourish. So
clean it up.
But last year was
he's
real
got
bad.
more excuses this year than he had last year, because last year that team they built around him, and he shit the bed.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. Going back to the Titans, this receiver room, I think it really started with Justin Melo, who I'm sure you guys are all familiar with in the Titans fandom. Writer over there. I love Justin. He's over there at the Draft Network, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But he kind of floated out there that who are the top 3 trade candidates in the NFL, and Treylon Burks was sitting there at number 1, which I'll entertain for the discussion points. But let's say they are floating out there trade rumors and all this stuff. What is the compensation that you would be comfortable with? Not what we'll receive, but what is that point where you would make that trade?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just, I'll entertain it for discussion purposes, like we're saying. But if you run your Corolla into a pole, you're not going to trade it in the end when you could have traded it in before you left. And that's where we're at with Treylon Burks. He's ran into a pole. He's all mangled up, and we're trying to take him to the dealership and trade the damn car, and it's not going to work like that, man. So, I mean, I understand cutting your losses, but nobody's going to give up anything for Treylon Burks. Why? Why would you? What is he proven to trade for? You know, I would take a 6 for him, honestly.
Oh my Lord. Okay. If the Corolla is paid off, look, I'm a smart financial individual. Okay. So I'm not going to go trade in my Corolla for pennies and then go get a car note on a fancy car and have that built. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not considering a trade for Treylon Burks at all. Even
We still got to make payments on him.
I mean,
we got dead cap space we still got to account for. We still got to make car payments on Treylon Burks.
We don't know what Treylon Burks is yet. We don't. If he trots out there and gets hurt, it is what it is. You got to cut ties, right? I understand. I get it. But I've said this in depth, and so I'm going to save the long and winded here. But the reality is that this is a much different offense and setup for Treylon Burks. He doesn't have to be A.J. Brown anymore. There's not that level of expectation. You're a first-round receiver. Why aren't you producing like one? The reality is that sometimes you take guys high because of their talent ceiling, but they are not there yet. They need to develop, or in this case, has had some really unfortunate injury history. So if he can stay healthy, you have to see what he's got this year. And the best part is you don't have to trot him out there. He doesn't have to have 50, 60, 70 snaps every game. You can get him out there 29, 30, 35 snaps a game. Let him contribute in an offense. Let him stay healthy for 16 games and then go, okay, do we want to consider a fifth-year option on this? Did he show us enough to where we can go from here? Because I'll tell you one thing, guys. If we got offered a 6th-round pick, let's call it the Chargers, and they trade and Burks goes to LA and he lights it up, we would be pitchforks would be out in Nashville. We'd be so pissed off.
I don't think so.
Yes,
I don't think so.
Would. If he went out to LA,
people that ain't thinking
and had a 1,000-yard season, you wouldn't be mad.
Fans do not think.
That's what you got to think, though. What? That's a completely different environment. And I know you said LA, but it's not cutting it in this environment for him.
This environment,
so you know,
it's completely different.
It is. He can go to Arkansas. He can go hunt. He can't do that in LA. He's gonna go out there and go train. He can't go out there and fish. He's a little too close. It's like I said earlier. He's a little too close to home. He's just got to leave and find another pace, another environment to rekindle his career because it ain't working here.
Would you trade Treylon Burks for Jaquan Jackson? That's what you're getting in a 6th-round pick.
Yeah, I mean, I would trade him for Malik Washington. That's a whole nother story.
I can tell you right now that the trade offers, if they've received any, are like a 7th or like a pick swap. The trades are not good. It just doesn't make any sense. You keep a talented player. You can't deny he's talented. His issues are not in his talent or his ability. His issues are in his availability. He has not been available to showcase his talent. So if you're telling me, hey, Treylon, look, we have an entire offense of veterans, just studs right in front of you. Sit back, learn the offense, focus on yourself, really make sure that you are available when we need you. We're going to plug you in, you're going to stretch the field, and you're going to be dynamic in a way that highlights and showcases your ability. And if he gets hurt and he becomes unavailable, then guess what? It's no big deal because this front office and this head coaching and this coaching staff did not choose him. And you cut ties. It is what it is. It's like, okay, we're shedding dead weight from the last regime yet again. But if he hits and he shows up and he gives you 600 yards on 50 catches or 45 catches, then you go, okay, maybe we have something here and we can feature him a little bit harder, right? Then it's another conversation of do we look at a 5th-year option? And then it's like, ooh, I don't know, because that's a lot of money. So that's a different conversation for a different day. But I would like to get to that point because right now the Corolla's paid off. We don't have to make payments. It's free. This is a free
It ain't paid off yet.
It's a free vehicle.
No, it ain't. We still got dead cap money on him.
Bro, what
if
are we
cut
paying
him, we still got to pay.
right now, bro?
He's making first-round money.
But what is he making in the grand scheme? Outside of being a first-round pick, what's his actual money? Because what I want to know what he's making this year. It's less than $4 million.
I'm looking up this 5th-year option you're talking about. That's what I'm looking up.
$5 million, B. Will. Let's be.
That I know he won't get.
I am not looking forward to the headache of if Treylon Burks goes for 600 yards this season, and then we go into next season, and all the talk is going to be, do you re-sign?
I promise you, it will be.
Do you re-sign DeAndre Hopkins? Do you rely on Treylon Burks and bring him back to be that wide receiver 2 behind Calvin Ridley? I mean, this could all go really bad very fast. Very fast. But at the same time, it's like he has the talent.
It seems that way
he
now,
showed
Jake.
it.
It looks like that now because we have the last 2 years to look at, and it's horrible. So, of course, this is our response. But if he puts together a season where he catches 45 to 50 passes for 600 or something yards, right? Let's say he catches 5 touchdowns. You know, that's certainly not wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 numbers, but it's a big jump in production for a guy who has not been available. To me, if he's available for 30, 35 snaps and he stays healthy, I'm interested in keeping him around. But again, let's kick that can. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. This is, I could be wrong. I could be a foot in my mouth week 1. He could trot out there and get hurt. And bro, I'm dreading it. I really, really hope that's not going to happen to him. But if we see him get hurt and it's significant, I'm going to be very, very sad.
The coaching staff has shown close to zero confidence in this guy.
You can't.
The new coaching staff.
You can't. And don't get me wrong, you can't.
And they see him every day.
He's not been
We
available.
see him on Sundays. And if they don't have any confidence in him and they see him every day, I damn sure ain't going to have no confidence in him. And I see him on Sundays.
I totally get it. I like I said, foot could be in my mouth really quickly if this guy gets hurt.
But I understand the optimism. I mean, it's got to have optimism for sure.
I mean, ultimately, wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5. I think we're all in agreement that that's fine. That's fine. But we're not putting all chips into this Treylon Burks basket by any means. Ultimately, we'll see how it all plays out. This is going to be interesting with Treylon Burks this season.
I would be on the different. I would kind of be more on your guys' side of the fence if Treylon Burks was a starting receiver in this offense. If he was wide receiver 2 or 3, I would be a little worried because if he does get hurt, then it impacts your offense. If Treylon Burks isn't available in this offense, then you scrub your hands and you move on. It doesn't necessarily like torch the, we're not screwed if Treylon Burks gets hurt now. So that's the good thing. And you talk about like this coaching staff front office doesn't have much confidence. It's clear by the Tyler Boyd signings and the, Jaquan Jackson drafted. Like, okay, that's totally fine. If I was in their position, I'd be doing the same thing. You can't rely on this guy to be healthy. He hasn't shown you that. So now they've added some talent and they're giving Treylon Burks, this front office and this coaching staff is going to truly give Treylon Burks the best opportunity to show us that he's the guy. And if it gets flubbed, if he gets hurt, he, might not can help that. Maybe it's just, it is what it is. But if the production's not there, maybe his conditioning isn't there, it's all on him now. It's no longer, I was drafted to be A.J. Brown. I was drafted into a run-first offense with no talent around me. I was drafted with a subpar quarterback. None of those excuses anymore, buddy. You got to put it together. So
if he comes in out of shape, I'm trading him for a 7. I'm trading him for a 14th round pick. If he comes in out of shape.
I'm trading from MLB 14th round pick.
Yeah.
I know training camp's going to come around and Jim Wyatt's going to have his articles out there and it's Will Levis and Treylon Burks have a mind meld going on, and it's going to have all of him talking about the highlights of Treylon Burks, and then season's going to come around, we're seeing nothing again. I was just thinking about it. Who are we more confident in going into the season? Jalen Radens at right guard or Treylon Burks at receiver?
I'm way more confident in Radens at right guard or right tackle.
He's been way more hurt.
Yeah, but he showed me something.
They are the same person, in my opinion. They are the exact same person.
No, Radens has been more available. I feel like his
last half of the season.
But has he been good?
Yeah, the last half of the season he was. He was a bright spot on that offensive line. Offensive line was terrible.
Okay. In Dylan Radens' defense, he's had to play every spot except for center. He's literally played 4 different positions, and you can see
might be a backup center right now.
When he talks.
I don't know about that.
It's Brunskill. When he talks in his presser, like he had a presser towards the end of last year, and he said it without saying it. You could tell he was pissed off. He's like, bro, I've had to play 4 different spots on this offensive line. Like, how can you build muscle memory and continuity in your own game if you're constantly moving positions? Like, they are very different. Right side, left side, right side, left side. Somebody would get hurt on the left, so you plug him in at left tackle. Someone gets hurt on the Brunskill gets hurt on the right, you plug him in at right guard. It's like, bro, he's like, I'm just like a stopgap at this point. Like, I'm literally just just plug me in and keep the water from completely bursting our ship here. So for Radens, I feel like he's been kind of, similarly put in a position where he was expected to be a day one starter and wasn't ready to develop into that guy. He's just had to play more. But yeah, I think that's, I guess, Radens is the answer.
There's a big difference between Dylan Radens and Traylon Burks, and I think y'all can guess what it is. Can y'all? One of them gives a shit, and one of them don't.
Oh,
I mean, let's be honest.
How do you know? Okay, how do you know what makes you think that Traylon?
This guy Radens. I mean, he comes in the
season award last year.
Yeah, I'm not buying that. I'm not buying that. This guy, he can't stay on the field for one. I mean, that's not necessarily his fault, but there's preventative things you can do. This guy Radens came back early, ahead of schedule from an ACL injury, way ahead of schedule last year, and then played. He was ready week 1.
Can I drop a piece of a legitimate piece of information that I got from a source that I can't tell you who it is, but I promise you it is.
Yeah, I've got that on Birch too. I don't even want to talk about that.
Hold on.
I don't even want to say my shit I heard.
This doesn't have anything to do with Burks.
Okay.
It has everything to do with the conditioning and medical staff that was under Vrabel. So I have a very reliable source. I've spoken to a very reliable source that said that whole process for the Titans organization is not good. Like one of the worst in the league in terms of like medical conditioning, not necessarily the strength staff, but like medical conditioning and basically coming back from an injury type of thing. That their process was god awful.
We were building calluses.
And so when Vrabel talked about the soft tish guys, that wasn't on the players necessarily. The process for them to rehab is I don't think it's the same anymore. I think they've changed that staff out, but in previous years it was bad. So all those injuries that we saw piling up, and Vrabel's like soft tish guys, soft tish. All these guys are soft. David Long just went and had a hell of a season in Miami.
Yep.
What I thought David Long was a soft tish guy. Watch Christian Fulton play all 17 games in LA. Watch.
If he plays all 16 games, I'm more worried about that team than it would not happen.
Right. I'm not talking about his performance, just availability.
He might be out there. He might not be good. I mean,
I think y'all are a lot lower on ratings. Y'all should be though, man. Honestly, I mean, the guy, he's shown promise. I can't say the same about Burks.
I like Radens. He just has.
I can genuinely look at film with Radens and look at film with Burks and say one shown promise, and the other has damn near regressed from what he was in college. I mean, Burks, he's not breaking any more tackles. He's not any more explosive than he was in college.
Too much.
So what? Yeah, it's too much pollen.
I think last season the problem is he regressed last season. That's what made it worse. So the injury stayed persistent, and then the production was far less. But if you look at his rookie year, there were a lot of signs that he could be, explosive and do like the Dallas game where he like literally tightrope to the sideline for like 20 yards. Like he had those moments, and then obviously where he can go up and get those contested catches. So we'll see. I'm beating a dead horse. Yeah. I'm in a very small room with a very few people and thinking that there's some optimism here for Burks. We'll see. Biggest thing is he's got to show us this year. But the good news is that he doesn't have to be AJ Brown this year. He can just be productive in a way that they think he can do it. That's all.
Yeah, he can be Tyrone Calico. That's who he can be. That's who he can be.
Tajay Sharp.
Yeah, no. Tajay Sharp. That's who he can be. Just don't be out on Broadway beating people up.
I think we all offer a great perspective on this. Jonathan hates Dylan Radens and loves Traylon Burks. Opposite of that.
Wait.
I hate both of them.
I like Dylan Radens.
So we're talking an hour on just the wide receiver room, and that might be the deepest room we have in this Titans organization. Going back into this team, what is the biggest question you guys have as far as positional groups go? What do we need to address before the season starts?
Oh, you can go ahead, Jonathan.
For me, it's two different groups. The first group is our edge rushers. I think that, obviously we have, a couple guys who are talented. I really like Caleb Murphy, and maybe this coaching staff does too. Maybe there's something there, and maybe I forget his first name, but our new defensive line coach Rucker, what's his first name?
Yeah.
Anyways, he's the guy the guy we got from Philly. He's a great coach. Maybe he saw the tape around Caleb Murphy and was like, I think we got something here. Let's give it a look. Rashad Weaver has an opportunity to have a bigger impact than he's had in previous seasons, which he's just kind of been low on the depth chart. So we'll see if he can add some serious value. And then obviously Arden Key is a guy who looks like at this point he's starting, which is not a problem. But, can he be a 3-down pass rusher? I don't know. He might have to be. So at this point, I'm a little concerned with maybe do we have enough on the edge? And then the other group obviously is the guys behind him, and that linebacker room in terms of like who your Mike and Will linebackers are going to be. I really, really love Cedric Gray a lot, and I think he's going to be the green dot wearer. I think he's going to plug in and be a day one starter, and then it's probably going to be a rotation of guys. Otis Reese still there, still showed a lot of promise towards the end of the year, so I'd like to see him there. But yeah, to me, those are probably the positions with the biggest question mark, because I'm not as low on the right side of the line. I think if NPF is healthy, then the line he's gonna play adequate football on the outside. So I think that line is a lot better. The safety group I'm not too concerned with. They're gonna go sign a guy, and I like the depth. The depth is fine. Corners are good, wide receivers good. I think it's just the outside linebackers and just the linebacker room in general, I guess, outside and inside.
Yeah. I'd say linebacker room, but then again, I don't really put too much stock into that position like as much as others do. I'm really looking at my biggest concern are edge and safety. We got Rashad Weaver that's going to be seeing, 50% of the snaps. That is not good. we got to get a guy. We got to find an edge guy. Really, the profile edge guy that I think we need to get is just like a bigger run stuff in 5-tech is really what we need. Somebody that's going to come in, set an edge, really Autry. We got to find a budget Autry and he's not going to be as versatile as Autry is or anything like that, but he can at least stuff the run on early downs and be there, because we absolutely cannot have Rashad Weaver in on early downs. They're just going to torch us. And then safety position as well. We've got to sign a safety, which they will, I'd imagine. This safety market, it hadn't even started churning like I thought it would yet. So, these guys are really holding out for their money, which I respect. But, we got to get a guy like Marcus Mann here. Justin Simmons is who I prefer. But as long as we get one of those two guys in, that safety room will be okay. And then the linebackers are going to do as well as Sweat and Simmons do. I mean, they're indicative on that. That's where they're going to play. If we keep those smaller linebackers clean, guys can fly to the ball. You can get a guy off the street that can fly to the ball and make a tackle. So that's really what we're going to have to do. We're going to have to keep them clean. Sweat, Simmons, keep them guys clean. Let them fly to the ball. And we got to set the edge to be able to let them fly to the ball and it be a chance of us getting a tackle within the box. Because if we don't set the edge, these linebackers ain't going to run sideline to sideline and make tackles. Like, you can't play winning football like that. You got to find a guy on the edge that's going to set the edge and force these guys inside. So that's really what I'm concerned about, man. Edge and safety. We got some pass rushers in Landry and Key, but that's only two. You know what I mean?
I think Tyus Bowers could make some sense late in the camp as a free agent signing. Obviously, a Denard Wilson familiar face in Baltimore. He, was solid in rotation with the guys that they had. So that could make some sense. Bud Dupree. Kick the tires on Bud, who had an okay season last year for Atlanta.
Yeah.
And then
he would fit.
Simmons
That's the crazy thing is Dupree would fit, profile-wise.
Yeah.
Now, would Dupree fit? The other side of it, would Dupree actually fit? And I don't know.
Yeah, I think he stayed healthy last year too.
Staff. Yeah,
it's a new coaching staff
over there at Atlanta. But I mean, I tend to agree. Edge is the biggest concern for me. I think Arden Key is a situational pass rusher at best. That's not a guy I want out there starting by any means. And I think the coaching staff has come out and said that. Rashad Weaver, get that man on the practice squad. He's not an athlete. He can't. And we kind of bring him up as this run defender. It's because he can't rush the passer. So that's what he's pigeonholed in to do, and which I don't think he does very well either. So if they're bringing in somebody, I mean, I like an Emmanuel Ogbah, Carl Lawson, even Yannick Ngakoue. I'd be fine with any of those guys. But I'm not – this edge group does not boast well for us. If Harold Landry goes down with an injury again, we're cooked. That's what it is.
Worst in the league if he goes down.
100%. We might be worse before that. I mean, it's not looking great. If Harold Landry isn't back to what he was pre-ACL, we're in trouble. That's what it is. This inside linebacker room, I'm fine with at this point. I mean, I like guys like Otis Reef. I mean, Jack Givens, even as a linebacker 3 or 4, I'm fine with. He's not an athlete, but he's in the right spot at the right time as a rotational piece. I'm higher on Kenneth Murray than the consensus, obviously. And Cedric Gray, it's a guy, I mean, coming out of the draft, I wasn't super high on the pick just because of who was still on the board, but it makes sense. He can wear the green dot. So my biggest pull is safety, which I know also out of consensus, I like Marcus May more than Justin Simmons. And it's not just because of his play. He's got the continuity with Denard Wilson. He's going to offer some insight there. I think at this point in the career, they both, between him and Justin Simmons, haven't just lost a step, but it's steps. And as far as athletes go, straight line speed, I think Marcus May is still slightly faster athlete. I'm not going to say he's a better athlete, change of direction and all that stuff. I think Justin Simmons still has. But I think Brian Callahan got his guy in Tyler Boyd. I see it very similar on the defensive side with Marcus May. The only other ones I can maybe think of, tight end, that's something that needs to be addressed. And I'd be fine if they brought in another tackle. I think Mekhi Becton's still out there. I'd be happy to throw him. He did sign? Okay.
Yeah,
well, it'll be MPF and Jalen Duncan as your right tackles this season, which I think I'm not writing off Jalen Duncan. I
like Jalen Duncan.
I really do too. He was a project. He was a 6th round pick. We threw him out there early. Of course, he didn't play well. But I think he does have a lot of things that you like to see. And, I mean, there was things on tape that I really liked last season as well. So, ultimately, I'm not ruling him out as being a project right tackle next season.
You know what's crazy to me is that we spend all this time leading up to the draft talking about the draft. And it's not just us, but it's people. Spend so much time leading up to the draft talking about the draft. We don't talk about the draft after the draft as much as we should, nearly as much as we should. We still have a hole at edge that we could have filled with that 6th round pick. I am disgusted with that 6th round pick that we had, Newton or Jackson. I'm disgusted with it. We had Mo Kamara. We could have. And I'm not saying he would be a star edge by any means, but he would have filled a need that we had at the edge. Instead, we drafted a slot receiver that hasn't even really had that much production in college. You know, I just don't get it.
What is the difference between Jaquan Jackson and Kyrus Jackson?
Yeah, but if we were going to sign Boyd, why do we even do that? What's the point? I don't get it. But I'm extremely supportive of the organization and the way it's going. It's just you can still ask questions of why and be critical of it. And I'm extremely critical of that pick just because there's so many other options and ways we could have went instead of getting, Jaquan Jackson. So,
man, going back into that, it's like, man, would you have preferred to have I know Andres Pete just signed, but would you prefer an Andres Pete and a Roma Dunze, who was still on the board at that point in time with Latham, or do you prefer the Boyd and Latham side of things? So there's a lot that can kind of go into a lot of those things that you were looking back. Obviously, we can't change shit. This is what we got, and I'm going to root for him regardless. But it's going to be interesting going back 3 years from now. What could have been? This is the Randy Moss pick. This is the Amon-Ra St. Brown pick. So Titans fans are always going to hold that against Rand in the future if it does sour. Ultimately, I think Latham can be a great player for us, though. So
yeah, I'm happy with the 1st round pick. I shouldn't be complaining too much about a 6th round pick anyway, but I mean, it's just
a 6th round pick. It's a special.
It's a 6th round pick. Yeah, but I feel like we could have filled some needs there in the short term.
We're getting our dogs, our disciplined assholes with grit. But you guys have anything to add before we hop into this draft?
No, I don't think so. I just think Jonathan's going to order me a Traylon Burks jersey.
I hope I have a reason to. I hope I have a reason to.
If Traylon
I'll
Burks
buy
comes out
one
and
if we
goes out
do.
and goes 1,000+ yards, hell yeah, brother. Hell yeah.
I'll weigh one on here. If he has a 2-touchdown game, I'll wear a jersey on the next show. I'll wear a Traylon Burks jersey with a damn Arkansas hat.
think it's
I'm
possible.
gonna order it off of natix.com though, so might not be authentic. Just in case it does sour in the future, I'm not out a whole lot. But all right, let's go ahead and hop into this draft. Yes. If you guys are checking us out for the first time, we got a couple hundred of y'all in the chat. Make sure you hit that like, comment, and subscribe button. If you're checking us out on Twitter, head over to YouTube, type in Glory Day Sports, and join the chat over there. Obviously, our comments don't pop up that you guys post over there, so come join the conversation. But as we end each show, we do a draft. And today we're doing our favorite college football players of all time. We're going 4 rounds. We're going snake draft style. I didn't set the rounds we were going in, but I'll go ahead and kick us off. B Will, you go ahead and go second. Jonathan, you go third, and you'll be on that swing. I honestly don't remember what we did last week, and I didn't look it up. But I'll give you guys some time. So I'm gonna start with the 101, and I got 8 players on this board, and we're going 12 picks. So you guys can't take my guys. And I mean, there's not a clear 101 for me. There's a lot of guys that I like. Right. Lots of offensive players, just a few defensive players. But if I'm thinking the greatest college football player of all time,
greatest or favorite?
Quarter. I put favorite. I put favorite.
Okay,
so these are my favorite players, and I obviously we have our fandoms. Obviously, I'm an Oklahoma fan. I think Jonathan is a Volunteers
Boomer
fan.
Sooner.
Yeah, Boomer Sooner. I refrain from doing all Oklahoma players. There might be some that fall off on here, but I'm going with a guy that has stayed relevant even though he was an awful pro, and that's Tim Tebow with the 101. Actually beat my Sooners in the national championship, that damn bastard.
Mm-hmm.
But when I think of like movie quarterbacks, Tim Tebow is that in real life. And we're talking the highlights. They're amazing. He's trucking guys out there at the quarterback position of all places. So I'm going Tim Tebow with the 101. And
I'm disappointed we didn't get a really good documentary on him and Aaron Hernandez situation, them rooming together. You know, they did that little Florida doc, but it wasn't.
That's why we didn't get a good one.
Yeah, it wasn't good though.
Have y'all watched the Tom Brady roast yet?
Yes.
No, I haven't watched it.
There's lots of Aaron Hernandez jokes in it. I've only seen clips. I've got a flight here in a couple of days. I'm gonna watch all 3 hours of it, but I've seen some juicy tidbits, and it's going to be worth watching in my opinion.
Pretty good. It's pretty good.
It's a little uncomfortable at times.
Nikki Glaser crushed it.
Yeah. All right. So B Will, you were up at the 102.
Man, I think I'm going to go a guy that, you know, is when I was probably a teenager when he was playing him, Geno Smith, out there at West Virginia. I mean, just talk about some of the best college highlights you'll ever see. And it's Tavon Austin, man. What a guy he is. Probably my favorite college football player of all time. Just the pure highlights that he has. You just type in Tavon Austin highlights. They're insane, man. You talk about electric, and I just think he came into the league a couple years too early. Like, same thing with one of the guys I'll pick later on if y'all don't pick him. Just wasn't in the right era for him in the NFL. Just imagine how he'd be coming out this year in the draft where he'd be. Like, it'd be nuts. You know, so,
I don't want to say any names because there's a lot of players that kind of fit that mold, and I want to take any picks away from anybody. But there's guys that come out that you're like, well, he's just too small. He's electric, but he just doesn't fit the mold. And Tavon Austin was that dude. And in college, I mean, there's not many wide receivers, and he's a wide receiver, but he did it all for him. So I don't mind that at all.
Arguably one of the greatest highlight tapes of all time.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's top 3, 100%.
All right, so I got back-to-back picks. Two of my favorite players are at the top, so that's pretty cool. So the first one I'm going to pick is I was a young, impressionable Titans fan. I've never been a huge college football fan, but I've always kind of kept a close eye on it and watch it. And this guy got exciting really fast. And to be clear, as far as my college fandom goes, growing up when I was real young, I watched Tennessee and like T. Martin and, you know, Casey Clausen and like all those guys were a ton of fun to watch, but I wasn't really like a fan. And so I wouldn't say that my allegiances lies in any particular team, but I've really enjoyed watching Tennessee and I've really enjoyed watching Texas growing up. So this guy makes a ton of sense. I'm going to go with my guy, VY, Vince Young.
Yep.
What a guy.
Was absolutely electric in college. So much fun to watch. And it was even better because at that time I was in high school, I think. I was like a freshman or going into high school as a freshman or something, and an impressionable young Titans fan, and I just loved watching him in college. And then when he became the pick, it was absolute just pandemonium. It was so much fun. So VY, I'm a huge fan of Vince. Always have been, always will be. And then for my swing around in the second round, I'm going to take a guy who arguably the most dynamic and electric player right behind Tavon Austin, and that's Reggie Bush, man. Reggie Bush, absolutely electric player. Shout out to Reggie Bush. Got his Heisman back, officially reinstated, which is fantastic. Really good for him. And man, boy, was he so much fun. Every single game, so much fun to watch. Like easily one of the most electric and elusive players that I've seen with the football in his hands. So that's easy.
That's exactly who I was talking about. He was just a little too early.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, big fan of that. What would that have been? 03, 04 national championship when Vince Young and Reggie Bush played against each other.
Yeah,
I mean, that was a hype draft too. We drafted Vince at 4 and
3.
I think 3 and
Liner
Bush
came
went
out.
at 4,
Reggie,
right?
Reggie at 2 to the Saints. I think it
That's
was.
right.
Or no, Reggie.
I think Reggie went a little later.
Yeah, it was
I think
Williams.
right after.
Mario Williams 1
He was
to
1.
Houston. Reggie Bush 2 to the Saints, and then VY to us at 3.
Leinart went to Arizona at like 5 or 7 or something like that. Maybe, I think. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think it was
What a wolf on him.
Correctly.
But just imagine if Reggie Bush would have came out of this into this, in the league at this time. When guys like McCaffrey, he really set the standard and allowed guys like that he trailblazed for guys like that, Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, that mold of running backs to really, he changed the game. Reggie Bush did.
And it started changing right when he was getting older. There, I mean, when he went to New Orleans late in his career, that's when he started being electric for them and actually caved out that role for himself. But yeah, just a couple years too late for him, unfortunately. Leinart was the 10th pick according to MB, and that was still a bust.
Still too soon for him. USC quarterback.
Yeah. Yep.
Left-handed quarterbacks.
Yeah. So I'm back up, and a couple of picks have gone off the board that I think
it's B-Will, right?
Oh, it is B-Will. It is B-Will. Yep.
It is me. Go. So I'm gonna take a guy that just a couple of years ago. I mean, he had a hell of a documentary come out last year too. But this is a guy that you talk about electric. He's up there. He was just as electric, if not more electric, than Reggie Bush because he had social media behind him. He's beating suspensions. He's flying to Miami to sign footballs and stuff like that. You talk about Johnny Manziel, Johnny Football, the guy. He didn't go to class.
That was my next
He didn't do nothing. He played football, and he won. And he single-handedly beat Alabama at the peak of its powers. That's back when Alabama didn't lose. They went to College Station. Before College Station was College Station, you look at those highlights, the stadium is not, Johnny Manziel built that stadium. That stadium was nothing. It looked like a high school football field, a Texas high school football field when he was there doing his thing. And you talk about just an electric player, man. And, he was him. One of my favorite college football players.
Same.
Yeah, that would have definitely been my next pick. Well, we've gotten a lot of offensive players off the board. So I think I'll go ahead and kick us off with the first defensive player. And I'm going to Ndamukong Suh. When he was at Nebraska, he almost won the Heisman at defensive tackle. You realize how hard that is?
Dang it.
Yeah.
That was my pick.
He's out there stepping on kids. He's throwing offensive
50
linemen
TFLs.
around.
50 TFLs in his career.
He was a monster.
Greatest Nebraska defensive player of all time. Shots at Will Compton. So I'm going to Ndamukong Suh with that first pick. And then we're going back to the offensive side of the board. And there's a lot of guys out here that I see. This is a similar tier for me.
Pick you another Sooner, man. I know you want to.
Yeah.
We'll probably say
I might pick it Sooner if you don't.
Yeah, you better pick
There's
him.
one Sooner that I rank above all the highest. It was the first jersey I ever owned. And it wasn't a college jersey. It was an NFL jersey, and he did not play for the Titans. So my first jersey ever owned was a Minnesota Vikings all-day Adrian Peterson
He
jersey.
did play for the Titans, Jake.
He's a
He
Titans
did.
legend,
He's
Jake.
all-time great.
Titans legend.
All-time great for the Titans. But Adrian Peterson was that dude. He had that fuck you mentality. He's not going out of bounds. He's running through you. And I remember going to my first OU game ever, and I believe we were playing Texas A&M, if I remember correctly. And we're talking Mike Vrabel is built in the past. Bob Stoops was built in the past. We came out that second half. We didn't throw the ball one time, not even once. We ran the ball 30 some odd plus plays. Adrian Peterson had most of them and put up like 4+ touchdowns, and he's going for 200+ yards. And he was just that dude. And then he came into the league as a rookie, won the offensive rookie of the year, and did not stop from there. Had the 2,000-yard+ season, so he kept it up in the pros. So Ndamukong Suh and Adrian Peterson are my picks.
Good deal. I'm gonna take a guy, and so the two of the guys I'm picking so far, they had a lot of shenanigans with them, a lot of off the field stuff, a lot of off the field issues, but that sort of added to the aura of them when they played on Saturdays, because it was all throughout the week they were going to do something silly. You don't know if they're suspended for Saturday or not. A lot of times they were suspended, but when they got on the field, they performed well. Heisman Trophy winner. I'm going to take Jameis Winston. This guy stole crab legs. He was on top of a mezzanine. Yeah, he was on top of a mezzanine table on campus, yelling crazy stuff, and got suspended a half and tried to come out there and play. It's what a guy Jameis Winston was, and he's really matured a lot too nowadays, man. It's really good to see him mature, because
he's out there interviewing fish on a boat. I mean, he's that dude.
Yeah, Jameis has matured a lot, man. I'm happy for him. His career didn't turn out exactly, and it might have turned out exactly how he wanted. He's got a long career, but he's really done a lot for himself as a person and really been a good role model for people himself. And he's a multi-sport athlete. He's really good at baseball.
What could have been if he would have got LASIK at an earlier age?
There's always something with that guy, man. Yeah, he said he couldn't see. What a guy.
Definitely.
I didn't even want to say what he yelled on top of the table on the campus. We might get canceled.
Yeah, he did some wild stuff. He was a lot of fun to watch. All right, so now I got my back-to-backs to close it out. For this first one, there's two guys left on my board. Well, there's 3 or 4, but 2 guys that I guess I would consider here. At this point, I'm going to go with a guy who, again, was a lot of fun to watch, had some off-the-field stuff that wouldn't have even been talked about in today's, college football. But, I guess that was a storyline they tried to tear him down for. But this guy was dynamic, not only as a college athlete, but took that same energy into the pros. And I'm going to go with Cam Newton. So Cam Newton didn't light it up from a passing standpoint. He had, I think, like 2,700 yards, 20 touchdowns or 30 touchdowns, something like that. But this guy had almost 1,500 yards rushing with another 20 touchdowns. This guy was a touchdown machine in college and literally willed his team to victories, which to me was the most fun quarterback to watch in college football. So that one was a lot of fun. And I think for my last pick, this is probably just going to be a player that I choose because I was really young when he was in college. And it was a lot of fun to watch because my friend was such a big fan. But, and I'm trying to remember exactly. I don't even think I remembered watching him while he was in college. I think I remember watching his college highlights and being a fan of him after he had gotten drafted. And that's Ricky Williams. Ricky Williams,
what a guy.
A dynamic player, was a big back bruiser around that time, which was very popular. But more importantly, man, didn't the Dolphins, somebody traded the farm for him. I forget exactly what that looked like. It was I think they literally traded, if I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, chat, but I think they traded their entire draft, like literally pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for Ricky Williams. Or maybe it was I forget exactly how that went down. All I remember is that somebody traded the most insane haul of all time for this player. And then he also had an incredible NFL career. But Ricky was, man, he was special back in the day. And not necessarily like the greatest running back of all time or anything, but for some reason, when I think of my youngest earliest days as a football fan, Ricky Williams just stands out. So, Ricky Williams.
Yeah, the thing is, they traded all that. They could have waited until free agency and gave him a pound, and he would have came right to Miami.
Yep.
Right. So it was the New Orleans Saints and the Washington Redskins that made the trade. And it was every pick they had in that draft and 2 of their first 3 picks in the 2000 draft. So the next year for the 5th overall pick.
Was it Dick Butkus who was the head coach of the Saints at the time who traded for him? I think that watch me be right on that. That's insane. I think
history lore. What a guy.
I think it was Dick Butkus, who was the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, who traded all of those picks, or maybe he was the head coach for I think he was the head coach for the team that traded for him, which I believe was the Saints.
We got to get a running back in here. We got to give him the ball 35 times a game.
Give him all the picks.
Yeah.
So the Saints it was Jim Haslett was the 2000 season head coach. The Saints is what it says.
I feel like Dick Butkus had his hands on something like that.
What was Dick Butkus doing in 2000?
Watching running back tape, saying that he would have gave up 2 drafts.
Yeah. Sorry, this is holding up the draft, but I have to know.
No, for a name dropping Dick Butkus at 7 something in the morning, we've got to get to the bottom of this.
It's random. Hold on. This wiki is deep.
I'm on wiki too, and it ain't
I don't
showing.
see it either. Okay. All right. Well, we can move on. I'll keep looking, and I'll let you guys know what I find. I swear to God, I know this is so. Why would I remember that? You know what I'm saying? Like, so random.
Mike Ditka.
Oh, the wrong Chicago Bears linebacker. Thank you, MB. Mike Ditka.
MB has helped us a ton today, man.
Now, where was Mike?
He's been on top of it.
Real one in the chat
in 2000.
If you guys are over on Twitter, hop over to YouTube so you can correct us as well. So,
Mike.
All right, B. Will, you're finishing it out with your last pick.
Man, I think my last pick just reminds me of the days back in Sports Center where they weren't doing a whole bunch of analysis and all that. You just had the ticker on the left-hand side. This guy. You had the ticker on the left-hand side.
That's somehow racist. I know it is.
Somehow. The ticker on the left-hand side, and you had nothing but highlights for 2 hours. Just nothing but highlights all the way through, and they just played reruns all night. So that reminds me of a guy, running back from Arkansas, Darren McFadden. What a guy he was. Yeah.
That was literally my next pick.
That was
not so fast.
Pick steal. That was
not so fast. What a guy, Darren McFadden. Big play guy. Catch the ball out the backfield, electric. He'll run you over too if you let him. You know what a running back he was in at Arkansas. You know you didn't. Arkansas was Arkansas.
High.
Yeah, shoulder pads were that high.
Statue of a man.
He was a monster, man. So one of the guys I always look forward to.
Worked with his aunt there for a long time, and he's that dude. Darren McFadden is that dude. But
he had a good career too.
He had a great career. Yeah. I mean, over there at Oakland, I mean them and Al Davis, they were getting their demons, and this may have been a guy they should have drafted, but they went with another speed demon out there over at the Raiders, and I'm gonna wrap it up with Michael Crabtree, wide receiver out of Texas Tech. Michael Crabtree was that dude, great receiver out there. Was always that wide receiver 2. Not a wide receiver 1 in the league over there at the Saints primarily, but Michael Crabtree was a great receiver, and he won that. What was it against Texas when they were contending for the national championship that one year? He had that highlight catch across the sideline, walked in, and just went off. So that wraps it up, guys.
Sad thing about Crabtree is that he's not going to be remembered for his playing career.
No, he's going
to get remembered for having his chain snatched by
Richard Sherman. That's a sad thing about Crabtree because he was a good player, but nobody's going to remember him for that.
Before we end it, Mike Ditka, I'm pretty sure, was the head coach of the Saints when this trade happened, because after the trade, Mike Ditka and Ricky Williams appeared on a cover of ESPN where they were like getting married. Ricky Williams,
I remember that.
They got him in a dress, and Mike Ditka only agreed to do it if he wasn't the one in the dress. So So Mike Ditka, I was just remembering the wrong Bears linebacker, I suppose. My bad. Thanks,
I
MB.
wonder if that was his last head coaching job.
It had to have been.
Oh, yeah. I would hope so.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, after trading that for Ricky Williams, I mean,
Ricky Williams was exceptional.
I mean, he was a
coming out of
coach.
Texas,
He wasn't GM. He wasn't
No.
the GM.
But Mike Dick is going in that office telling them what he wants, and they're doing it.
Oh, yeah. He was Mike Vrabel in it.
Yeah.
Which never works out. We'll remind that
Obviously
everybody again. I mean, this was a really fun draft, guys. I think this is reminds me of when the girlfriends are like, "Hey, I'm just going to put my boyfriends in a room together," and they just talk about random sports players. There's random names, and there's so many other ones we could have talked about. I mean, this is a very wide versed list. One of the other guys when you're talking about was like just before his time, Cordell Patterson. Was one of those guys. Percy Harvin was another one. I didn't want to take. I didn't. Percy Harvin was up there for me. I didn't want to take 2 Florida players though. So,
right.
But I think that wraps it up, guys. I think great show today. If you guys are checking us out, remember like, comment, and subscribe. We'll be here every Thursday, same time, same place, and we will catch you guys next week for the season preview. Peace.
Predictions.